Today we're going to be talking about poetry. You'll receive information on 3 different areas of poetry: sound of poetry, poetic devices, and types of poetry. Word choice or diction is the way that a poet creates music for their poem. This young poet is thinking about 4 different ways to say the word walk. He's thinking stroll, walk, pace, or saunter. Each has a slightly different meaning and a different sound or rhythm to make up the word. There are 2 different ways to look at diction when developing a tone. You have the connotation, which is the emotional feeling from the word, and the denotation, which is the literal meaning of the word. Rhythm is the repetition of stressed and unstressed syllables that provides the poem's beat. Saying a word aloud can help you hear the natural beat of the word. For example, friendship and excitement. Rhythm. A poem's beat comes from the patterns made by stressed and unstressed syllables. Meter is the regular pattern of these syllables. Let's look at an example. A gentleman dining at Crewe found quite a large mouse in his stew. Said the waiter, "Don't shout and wave it about, or the rest will be wanting one too." Rhyme. The repetition of accented vowel sounds and all the sounds following them in words that are close together. Prince, wince, raps, scraps. There are different types of rhymes as well. Types of rhymes. There's end rhyme, couplet, rhyme scheme, internal rhymes. Here, the AABBCC pattern marks the rhyme scheme of this poem. Approximate or slant rhymes are rhymes that sound the same but are not exactly the same. They sound less artificial. For example, miss and whisk, arm and calm. Repetition is the repeating of structures, words, sounds, or images. In this case, the words "give me" are being repeated. Authors also repeat sounds. Alliteration is the repetition of a consonant sound. Assonance is the repetition of a vowel sound. Onomatopoeia. The use of words with sounds that imitate or suggest their meaning. For example, rustle, sizzle, slurp, thump, or bang. Onomatopoeia is often used in comic books. Poetic devices. Poems appeal to our emotions and imagination, as well as our sense of reason. They do this through imagery, figures of speech, and symbols. We'll be looking at several of these in just a moment. Imagery and symbols. Imagery is language that appeals to our senses, such as taste, sight, smell, hearing, and touch. Symbols are something that represent itself and have meaning in something else. Figures of speech. Here's a review. A simile is a comparison between 2 unlike things using like or as. A metaphor is a comparison without using a connecting word. There are also extended and implied metaphors. Figures of speech continued. Analogy, pun, idiom, hyperbole, and personification. Other poetic devices. Theme is the message about life that is revealed in the poem. Tone is the author's attitude towards the subject. and mood is the overall feeling of the work. Forms of poetry. Most people recognize a poem when they see it. Lines take the place of sentences, and stanzas take the place of paragraphs. There is an exception to every rule, however. Below are some examples of poetry that we are going to look at. Narrative and ballad poems. A narrative is a poem that tells a story. For example, Paul Revere's Ride tells the story of the American Revolution. A ballad is a song or song-like poem that also tells a story, but it is about love or betrayal. Epic and free verse poems. An epic poem is a poem that is passed down by word of mouth. It normally tells the story of a hero. A free verse poem doesn't follow the rules of meter or rhyme scheme. It does include the other elements of poetry, though. Lyric and sonnet poems. A lyric poem usually does not tell a story. Instead, it's the personal thoughts and feelings of the poet or speaker. A sonnet is a specific type of lyric poem that always has 14 lines and usually has a particular type of meter. An ode is a long lyric poem written to celebrate somebody who is famous or a lofty idea. An elegy is a poem of mourning, usually for someone who has died. That's it for poetry. I hope you've learned a lot.